Welcome everyone to a 209 Journey podcast. This is episode 2 of season 3. I'm back here on video. Shout out to everyone who's watching on YouTube or on Facebook as well. You have those two options for video. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you for listening to the podcast as well. Today, joining me is one of the owners of Konfucious Eats. It is a ramen shop here in Modesto, and it's actually the first ever ramen shop that we got here. They opened not too long ago, just a few years ago, but they're also now currently the only ramen shop in Modesto to actually make their noodles by hand. So how awesome is that? I always say homemade food is the best, and especially when you can go to a restaurant and get to experience something that you don't really get to experience at other restaurants here. But joining me again is the owner of Konfucious Eats, Ernie Watkins. Welcome to the podcast, Ernie. How's it going?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I feel honored being here.
And for those of you that are actually watching the video, Ernie's actually at Konfucious Eats right now. You could see it right there in the background. I was just telling him before we got recording that it's really cool that he has the logo centered right behind him right there. So
yeah, what's really cool
to
about
see
that is a lot of customers will point me out without knowing me, and they're like, "Hey, is that you?" And so my friend who actually made the logo, I didn't realize this for a long time. I've had the logo for years, and he's like, "Yeah, I just made your face." So, it's funny. I got a cartoon face of me going around with T-shirts around town and stuff. So it's a nice feeling when I get called out from the restaurant when I got the logo right there. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that, as with any logo, right? Once people recognize it, it's a good feeling, and I would rock a shirt with the logo there as well because I think having that logo big on a shirt would look really cool.
Yeah, that's a long time coming. We are very backlogged on T-shirts. We've been out for about a year, but I've been trying to get a little bit more designs, more colors. Got nudes, send nudes kind of thing. Working on those as we speak. So hopefully soon.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. Well, those are going to be for sure popular. Well, let's go ahead and get started, Ernie. I want to know a little bit more about your life here in the 209. I know you told me that you're from Ceres, so just tell me more about what it was like being in Ceres and just your time here.
Well, I was born and raised actually in Modesto, raised in Ceres, which is really close together, almost the same town. Ceres is a smaller, slower version of Modesto, but like literally connected to each other. So actually the house, I just drove by the house recently. It's still there, doesn't look the same, but it's been 30, 20, 33 years since I've lived there. So I was 7 years old. We moved to Modesto, the northeast side for Johansson. Went to Hughes Elementary School, went to Teal in Empire, and then I graduated from Johansson. So that was my high school. Nothing too extraordinary about my high school life. I was a little shy. Didn't really. I kind of started cooking. My cooking journey started when I was about 13, and it was out of necessity. Both my parents were working, and I was hungry, and I wanted some eggs. So the first thing I ever made myself was scrambled eggs, and I think I had already got the itch from the moment I started cooking. So I always wanted to make food, and I never always, as a kid, you don't think about it, but later on in high school, living with my dad, he would ask me to make him a sandwich for lunch. And then he would come back and be like, "Dude, that was the best sandwich ever." And I'm like, "Dude, you're just full of it. You're my dad." And he would always say that. And then I would be like, "Okay, cool. Like, let's start cooking." If I feel like cooking, always, if you're dating someone, you want to impress them, you start cooking. At 18 years old, I'm just doing amateur stuff. I'm not really like a professional at all. I've never had a cooking job. Of course, I worked in fast food as a teenager, and another indication of I thought I would be a chef was the first day I ever worked at Burger King at 16. I learned the whole menu in an hour, and I was just like, this is really easy. And it's just fun assembling everything. And then I did work in a restaurant for a few years after that. I had joined the Marines for a few years. When I was 22 or 23, I came back to Modesto. I got a job at Nikki Sushi over on McHenry. I worked there for about 7-8 years, and I went from, really green, not knowing anything, making hundreds of bad California rolls, until I started being like, oh, I can get this. I started kind of like each level up, I can do, nice sashimi cuts, and I can do nigiri. And I started really researching and focusing on like the techniques of Japanese cooking as well as Korean, since I'm half Korean. But I also gravitate a lot towards Japanese culture for my love of anime and video games as well. But the food and there's something about Japan. I love Korea too so much. So that's how I started my culinary career. Was at Umi Sushi, and I learned real quick that restaurant work is hard, and it's also the most like gratifying kind of work too. I mean, you really can just end the day exhausted but happy when you see all these people eating the food. I think as that moment I started kind of gradually getting a somewhat of a reputation, not intentionally. Like back then there was no social media as much, or maybe not MySpace, but no one was really advertising restaurant stuff. Especially like I do now. If you see my Instagram, it's like solely advertisement focused, and it's a good outlet for that because we've naturally grown about 7,000 followers. But that's I'll get to that point later. But and I started getting more research into Japanese food, and I had gone to Japan for the first time, and that kind of opened my eyes a little bit. Like real Japanese food, like real authentic food. And I've always kind of had this notion of I want to make things from scratch. Make these by hand because I feel like it's most connected to your heart is through your hands. Kind of like instead of like using a machine, kind of like mass producing something. I started thinking that, and so at that moment in my life, I started like experimenting with my own food at home. If I wanted to make something, I was like, I'm gonna make it from scratch because if I want to make something, I'm gonna learn unless I do it. And so not just Korean food and Japanese food, but I've taught myself how to do really good Italian food. I don't really like to say that I'm a great, I make great Mexican food. I think I could. I really tried. But I'm like kind of an all around kind of cook. I got that from my mom. My mom was like kind of not, and I don't, it's not meant to be negative at all, but I call my mom a garbage can cook, where she could take anything in the fridge and she'll make something amazing out of it. And she always hated when I said that. And I was like, that's a compliment, you know? You can take anything in that fridge and you can just make it. I kind of had that notion from her. A lot of my influences from my cooking is from her. Obviously a lot of my items on my menu is directly from my mother, like my kimchi, which I never made anything like that before in my life until I actually opened a restaurant. But I would make it before as a kid, like when I was in my 20s, trying to improve my craft. I ended up getting married, and I found a job in Livermore, right off 580 called Casino 580. So it's a card room, but it had a really nice, like fine dining kind of thing. You know, like you got the casino and then you got the bar, you know, they got the restaurant, and they try to make it like higher end. So we would make stuff. This is when I really learned how to cook in a restaurant form on the line of like real burgers and, you know, making pho from scratch. That was the first time I ever made pho from scratch. And we're kind of like American Asian restaurant, but we got a lot of Asian clientele. So we would have like chow fun and fried rice, chow mein, and then the pho we would make from scratch in it. That was my first experience making broths, and I never knew that at that moment. I'd be like, oh, 10 years later, I'm going to be running a restaurant making broths. This is my main like physical amount of food going on. And I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot of the business side of things, started paying attention. And I got promoted to assistant food and beverage manager with the aspirations of trying to become the full food and beverage manager. I learned a lot of the business side of things, which is not fun. I like cooking and I don't like paperwork, but just the necessities of running a restaurant and all that. And so I learned a lot of stuff working there too, and kind of the corporate status of things. And I realized that corporate is not my style. And I ended up leaving that to go work at Umi Sushi, which is over on Coffee in Sylvan. And I had worked there for about 3 years. And at that point, I felt like I was like the best sushi chef in Modesto. I still think I am. I'm not trying to be egotistical, but I feel with the recent events at the restaurant, I feel like people still love my sushi. And then I'll get to the point with that later. But since I left during COVID hit, I started doing pop-ups, kind of like a side hustle. I'm always like bored if I'm sitting at home. I don't like just sitting at home. And with all that time off, what am I do with myself? You know, so Instagram, I started making noodles. I went to Japan again for the second time. I came back and I was like really like focused on ramen. I started researching ramen. I started making ramen for my friends. At that time, I wasn't making my own noodles yet. I started researching it, and then I learned how extremely difficult it is to make noodles because you're essentially making chemistry. So I started making ramen kits for my friends, and the ramen kits came about because of COVID. How can I have people at home have some fun with their food and still be able to eat a delicious meal stuck in their home? This is when we were completely locked down. So I had a good friend of mine named Ty Bauer, who was actually used to own this restaurant before me. It was called, I can't remember.
Oh yeah, Bowers. Yeah, I remember
Bauer
Bowers.
66.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm blanking right now.
Yeah.
Bauer 66 and a half. That was his original spot. He's had it for quite a while. Had Guy Fieri from Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives show up, and it's actually still in the hallway. So people think that he showed up for me, which is not the case. Hopefully, maybe one day I can get some people with the Food Network down here. Where was that? So yeah, I worked at Umi Sushi during COVID. I started doing ramen kits. It started, I was telling my friends here and there, 20 at a time. Then I was like, I'm gonna start making my own noodles, and then I realized that was not the hardest, not the easiest thing to do. But I'm also like a challenge. Things that are too easy don't feel accomplished. So I started making my own noodles, and then I started realizing that, oh my God, this is really hard. So a lot of people think pasta is just flour and egg, which is actually the simplest way to make pasta or any type of noodle. And honestly, if I could make it like that, it'd be much easier, but it wouldn't be ramen. Ramen is an alkaline noodle. An alkaline is a chemistry, a compound or a chemistry. We basically have sodium carbonate and potassium carbonate, and which is that? Sodium carbonate is basically baked baking soda, where you put baking soda in the oven and you dissipate some of the oxygen. So instead of O2 oxygen, it turns into oxygen, and then there's something about it. I can't really explain it too much after that. The potassium and the sodium and the salt. There's something with the chemistry with that. That is what makes the noodles like chewy and like elastic, kind of like that top ramen. Not top ramen. Excuse me. I love top ramen. Don't get me wrong. The ramen kind of texture, and it's not the same as pasta. Pasta doesn't have like a bite. It doesn't have to chew as much. But ramen has a chew, kind of distinctly Asian flavor. So I started making my own noodles on a KitchenAid mixer. That was very difficult. It would take me all day, 8 hours, to make 100 batches of noodles, and that's how much I would sell. So I started selling 100 ramen kits in an hour on Instagram, selling out every week. And I was like, wow, there's something going on here. First we were delivering, and then luckily my friend Ty had another spot downtown, over off of 9th Street by the Arches. He had a nice spot there, and people would drive in, pick up their food, and then they would go and make their food at home. And I would have it where they would actually cook the noodles and boil the broth, and they can even like torch the pork belly and warm up the egg. So it's like a really interactive way. I kind of sold it where like, hey, you're stuck in the house with your family. Let's get your family together and do something interactive. Started selling really well. My sushi job started becoming important to me. I think the ramen was becoming more of a priority, more of like, okay, I got something going on here. I probably should keep going. And I kind of pulled away from doing sushi as much, like kind of like my energy wasn't in it. I was just like, I'd rather do my own thing. And then in all happenstance, I got fired from my job. Nothing. I try not to say anything bad. I still respect the people that own the job. It just didn't work out for us. It was also the first time I never had a job in like 15 years, maybe 12 years of just working 80, 100 hours a week, to where I'm like, oh, what do I do with myself? So I went on a camping trip, and I had this little moment on a rock and on the front of a river, and I just had this moment of clarity. And it wasn't like something like, oh my God, I got to do this right now. It just something felt right. And when I got back, and it really just started kind of falling in my lap. I got my buddy Ty Bauer was like, hey, he hit me up like literally like I didn't realize this. My best friend just told me this the other day. Like, I'm coming back from camping with him, and my friend Ty texted me. It's like, hey, I'm thinking about closing up the shop. Do you want to take it over? And I was just like, what? Like really? Like, this is in the middle of COVID. I mean, I didn't have a job. I wasn't sure what to do. It wasn't like I'm like, oh my God, my whole world's ending. But I was just like, what do I do? I guess my stable life of working had kind of broken, but everything just started falling into place. And I have a firm belief that everything happens for a reason. So I was reminded that, yeah, that text message I got from my friend was literally on the way back from camping. I think she texted me while I was camping, and I didn't get it until I was actually in the car heading back. And that just went from one thing to another. That I'm a blue collar kind of guy. I don't come from a lot of money, so but the whole time I'm like, I'm gonna open this restaurant, but how? How am I gonna do this? How am I gonna make this work? I don't have money. I don't have, I'm not a rich person. I'm just gonna open up a restaurant for $1 million. That's a little insensible too in the time of COVID too, where you can't have dine-in. So I'm like, okay, I have no dine-in. I have opening my first restaurant. It's like, let's go. We made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, and it kind of helped us get where we were. But we've been open for over 3 years now, and I feel like we've been hitting our stride. It ends up being that KitchenAid I got in the beginning, ended up turning into a Korean machine that I got from LA, which was just a big machine like this, but it was more physical. I was able to make more, but it was more like physically demanding of putting sheets in. I got lucky one time. This is about a year after the restaurant opened. I got a friend named Ryan up in Oregon. He had a food trailer at the time. He was trying to get a restaurant going. And there's a machine in Japan called the Yamoto, which is like the Cadillac or Corvettes of noodle machines. So it's about, 4 feet tall by 4 feet wide. It's a giant machine of metal. And these things cost $50,000 to $60,000. And he hit me up and he said, hey, I found one on Craigslist. And I was like, what? I mean, they're sold in Japan. How are you going to find one on Craigslist? And I was like, he sent it to me. I'm like, this is shady. This is weird. Your initial thought is like, what is this? And then he bought one. He had 2 of them. And then when he bought one, me and my best friend left that next day. Well, the next 2 days later, we drove up to Washington, got on a trailer, drove it back, and made noodles the next day with it. And the thing is, those noodles are now, that's kind of where it got us catapulted to more of like a better restaurant, because we finally were able to make noodles. And so instead of 8 hours of making 100 batches, I can make 100 batches in an hour. And this machine is amazing. I've had it for 2 years. It was originally in the restaurant. People were able to watch me make noodles, but it was very messy. And so that kind of helped a lot of things. Like I said, everything happened for a reason. Everything kind of fell in my lap. I got some help from a little help from my mom. We got 17,000 raised on Kickstarter. That was amazing too. And I was able to purchase the bowls that you saw when you came in to eat. We were able to purchase our shirts, and we ended up giving those away for people who had donated for the Kickstarter. And our buddy at the Food Fix downtown, were like one of the first people to drop $1,000. And so I actually used that, and I gave his staff a employee party before we opened. So it was a kind of a good soft launch, kind of 30 people, 50. I don't remember how many people. It was a good way to like get our feet wet before the craziness started. And so we were able to do that, and I was so grateful and very happy with the fact that I'm living a dream and I've accomplished a dream. And it's not always easy though. So some days are harder than others, but that's just kind of the nature of running your business, and the restaurant industry as well. The restaurant industry is very tough. So that's that journey from novice to professional.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome, especially, for everything to happen during the pandemic. And, you hear some of these stories like yours, right? Where like we were in tough times, and to take a chance on opening a restaurant, not knowing like when you're going to be able to actually have people in the restaurant, are we going to get hit with another COVID, like shortly after?
Yeah.
Like it was a risk for sure.
Yeah. And so when we first opened, it was like, no dine-in, take out ramen. How are we going to do that? I don't want to give someone a hot bowl of soggy noodles.
Mm.
So I was like, I gotta make something to make it better. And I realized I can just cold shock the noodles and then give people instructions to warm up the broth, so that way it's fresh when you get home. And we've kind of tested it where you can have it like 2 or 3 hours before you actually eat it, and then you warm up the broth, and it like kind of revitalizes it, makes it as fresh as possible for home. That's actually happened since day one, and we have not changed our to-go method. And I feel like we've been pretty good about that. Some of my friends in the ramen industry now, in the ramen community, we're pretty close. I'm friends with a lot of people I never thought I'd be friends with, and the people from. I have a buddy named Scott LaChapelle in Rhode Island who's got a really good shop named Pickerel. I said the king of ramen is Ramen Lord, who is my buddy Mike. He has a shop in Chicago, and then my friend slash kind of mentor, he helped me a lot with his the ramen world, is Keizo Shimamoto, who's also named Ernie. Surprisingly, he had some shops in New York. If you ever heard of the Ramen Burger, that was crazy in New York. If you look that up on Google, you can see him having an interview on Conan. He is the creator of an amazing ramen burger where he made patties out of ramen noodles.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool. Alex Park, who's up in Oregon, love the guy. A lot of people have helped me. I would say my buddies Alan and Mark in Sacramento are home ramen cooks, but we have been very good friends, and they've helped me on actual pop-ups in Sacramento as well. So it's like a community thing. And COVID and everything else, kind of my vibe is got community. And right now, like I'm friends with Ty Bauer, I'm friends with Hank from Food Fix. I have a lot of like friends with Brandon Dodge from Komodo's as well. So right now I'm kind of aiming towards doing collabs and events with my friends. And so there should be some events coming up this week, these coming months as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, yeah, that's really great when you can do collabs with others, especially those that support you, right, and have their own thing going on as well.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about, when the business got started, figuring out a name for it, where the name Konfucious Eats came from.
The word Confucius is funny. I used to be embarrassed to tell this story, but now I don't care. So Confucious Eats came about as just a boredom of cooking. When I was doing sushi and I was going out eating everywhere, I would start posting my food. Everywhere I would go, I would start posting pictures. I wasn't very good at taking pictures. I started posting everything, seeing descriptive, telling it how it tastes. I started getting a following, probably about 3,000 naturally, just from food blogging. Maybe 2,000. I'm pretty sure it's closer to 3. When I opened the restaurant, though, I didn't originally want to keep the Confucious Eats. The Confucius name came from my friend who, after smoking too much weed, I would just say really stupid stuff, and I would confuse people. So my friends would call me Confucius. So the name came about as just a funny way, but the name, and the kid was like, Confucius Eats. It sounds kind of cool. The logo had happened. This was about 8 years ago. I had the logo. I had the logo for a while, way before the restaurant. So the logo was actually was probably just as old as the Confucius Eats name. But when I opened the restaurant, I didn't want to open it. I don't want to call it Confucius Eats. Sorry, we just opened the restaurant for some people walking in. I didn't want to call it Confucius Eats. I didn't even remember the name I had put for it. I think I some variation of soul in Japanese. So I did a poll on Instagram, and I said, do you want this name or do you want Konfucious Eats? And the majority of people wanted the same name. So I was like, I picked it. It's a pretty unorthodox name as far as restaurant goes. I mean, you really can't tell what I make from just my name. So it's a little harder but I'm also, like you said, I'm the first ramen shop in Modesto. I'm bringing food out in Modesto that a lot of people don't understand and don't know what they're eating. So it's my job to kind of educate them. I do plan on eventually, I'll start a YouTube channel on making basic ramen stuff and explaining how things go. And that way people can look up the video while they come in and eat if they have questions. And I'm like, hey, there's a video of me being like, this is what ramen is. This is what goes into ramen. So I have a lot of ideas. That's how the name started.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I know that, there might be other businesses that might have a name that describes them, but it's nice when you have a name like this too, right? And with the story, and like you said, with being a blog before, it's kind of cool that it transitioned from being a blog to now being this, and now you kind of want to bring that back, right, with the YouTube channel as well. And yeah.
Yeah, very focused on social media, community. Just everything's online now. Everything's online. If you're not online, you're not gonna succeed. So I'm very focused. We have our own app now that just came out, and so we're just going with the times. And hopefully, we got some great people that work with us with our registers, and they've been helping us a lot. Getting our menu online, getting our apps. We have our own app, which I had never thought in 1,000 years I'd have my own app.
Oh
And so
yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, having your own app is a game changer for sure, right? And luckily, there's
Yeah,
more tools that can help you kind of create one without having to spend too much, right? Like it used to be.
yeah, right.
Well, I want to talk about the menu and the different items that you offer in addition to ramen, right? I mean, you guys, that's your thing, ramen, but you also have a more extensive menu, which is, by the way, really designed awesomely. I was
Thank
looking
you.
at it on their website on the ConfuciusEats.com. And so just tell us more about what people can find in that menu aside from like ramen.
I'm very proud of the design of the menu. First of all, I made all the designs. I'm not very good at it. I'm trying my best, but I think this is the best looking menu I've made, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to make the website look a little bit more closer to what the menu is. The menu comes from my need of variety because some of my friends were like, ramen, you're not just gonna you're gonna sell more than just ramen. That's a lot of work. I'm like, I firmly believe that you're not going to be able to sell other. You need to have more of a choice. It is a lot more work having more of a variety, but it also
Mhm.
helps the diversity of things because, like right now, it's hot and people. I mean, even though we're still selling a lot of ramen, a lot of people don't want to come in because it's hot. So now we offer like in the summer. So I've always done this since I opened the restaurant. I offer 2 menu changes through the year. So it's going to be spring and fall for the summer. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Spring and summer for like the hotter weather, spring weather starts getting warmer, then it get really hot, and not people will want what you want ramen. So I convert to brothless ramen. So I still sell a little bit of the ramen, but you notice there's not as much selection on the new menu. So there's a big selection of mazamen, which is brothless ramen, which is the same thing as ramen, but there's no broth and all the flavor is mixed in and all the toppings. So it's um, a lighter option, and I offer it. Now I'm offering a new style of ramen that I never offered before, but it's called skamen, which is a dipping noodle. Um, you can go in that bottom right corner of the menu above the terms to know. That is a style that is very popular in Japan and in LA and major cities with ramen. It's called dipping noodle. You have a side of thick, cold noodle, and you're dipping it into a concentrated hot broth. And it's actually very refreshing for how hot it is. How hot it is in temperature, but when you're eating it, you don't feel hot. You feel kind of like the balance of the cold and the hot kind of helps each other. But if you look at my menu, I have a lot of unique items. Um, a lot of items made by hand. Our noodles obviously made by scratch. Our broths are made by scratch. Our broths are made for 24 to 48 hours. Um, and everything else like the gogi, our Korean barbecue beef, and that is made by hand as well. And we've kind of elevated our rice bowls to a Korean style bibimbap bowl, which is really similar. We used to just have teriyaki rice, vegetables, and meat, and kimchi. Now we have everything that, but it adds like Korean omelet, bean sprouts, some mushrooms, and and so it's more and a nice sweet spicy sauce on top. So I'm trying to kind of go like when rice bowls go more traditional Japanese and Korean, and because I have like katsudon, which is like a pork cutlet savory bowl. That's like one of my favorite things in the world because it's pork katsu is cooked in this nice sweet savory sauce with onions, and then you put 2 eggs over it and you cover it and let it kind of just let it boil. And when you pour it over rice, the rice just soaks up all that sauce. That's actually a traditionally Japanese dish, katsudon. There's a chicken version called oyakodon that I love. I haven't been able to make a special out of that yet. I don't know. People would love it. I do offer pork and chicken for religious or dietary needs. Also vegan. We actually got voted last year best of Modesto for vegan, and so I'm pretty proud of that. We use the same techniques as I would for my ramen, and the same 5 kind of steps of ramen I would do for my normal meat broth. I still take that same concept and make it for vegan. So I use dried ingredients, sun dried tomatoes instead of dried fish. I use We roast our vegetables kind of French style, like old beets, carrots, onions, tomatoes, mushrooms, and then we slow simmer the broth for 2 or 3. No, that one's the fastest broth because it's vegetables. But so even our broth is made with like that much care, and we put as much love and hard work in everything that we make. My best friend makes all my broths. I make all my noodles. And my staff does a very good job of prepping. We make our bulgogi, which is nothing you can find in Modesto, at least mine. I make it's Korean barbecue beef, and that's made by hand. And I don't know of any place in Modesto that's selling kimchi. And that's my mom's kimchi. So she showed me her recipe when I opened the restaurant. So I still call it Mom's Famous Kimchi, but I've evolved it since then to the point where I kind of feel like I can't eat her kimchi anymore. But she's even saying like, your kimchi is really good now. Like yours is much better than mine. And now I got the, Asian mother approval. So it's very honored that she's proud of what I've done and the food I've made. She's kind of blown away too. Like I'll call her and be like, hey, I'm making this Korean dish. And she's like, what? And so I'm bringing stuff that you can't get here. You have to go to the Bay. You have to go to the Bay Area to get this, Sacramento to get this. I would love to open my own Korean restaurant in Modesto and be the first real Korean restaurant because I don't like the one that is here. I will never go there. And from everything I've heard, I just can't. I want authentic Korean food. I want my kimchi and my bulgogi. I want to be able to, have a spot where you can grill up food on your table and stuff like that. So I have a lot of aspirations. But yeah, my diversity of food I think helps me a lot. I actually have some food here. If you want to see.
Oh yeah, hey,
food.
Yeah. Hey, we got the podcast in the video too.
Since we're talking about the video, I got some food here. And so this right here is our spam musubi. Spam musubi. So it's rice and meat rolled up in seaweed with some sauce on top. This is our new hot item. This is called bulgogi tater tots. So tater tots, kimchi. We make our cheese sauce. We make our own cheese sauce, pepper jack cheese with bulgogi on there with the bibimbap sauce. And that one's been the really popular one lately. And these are our bibimbap rice bowls. So it has a very amount of toppings. My camera work is shoddy right now, so sorry. And then this is going to be the ramen. Now this one right here is the ichiraku. Ichiraku is the famous Naruto ramen. If anyone watches Naruto, this is the double egg, double pork bowl of miso, kankatsu. And this one is our most popular bowl. It's a fusion of the Japanese and Korean flavors. So that's our food. I'll be posting all these pictures for you if you'd like to post those on the Instagram as well. So.
Oh yeah. Please share the pictures too. And we'll share them with everyone. But anyone listening, just again, one more reason. Also watch the the recording too to get really hungry after you see that. So hopefully people are watching this when it's lunchtime before you actually ate.
Right.
You'll be hungry right away. I mean, me just looking at the menu, it's just there's so many good options there.
That's why I post pictures on Instagram, so you can, if you see it, you're gonna want to come in. So.
It works, right? With anything, you see it or you see the reels, and it's video and picture magic, right? It's just it gets you hungry.
Right.
But I think it's really awesome that you're bringing all these foods that we don't have here, or if we do, it's not authentic, as you mentioned before. I mean, there's still probably, I'm sure, a lot of things that we don't have here that they have in the Bay Area and LA, and people are slowly bringing in different foods, other businesses, things that we just don't have going on, and you guys are helping us keep more people here for sure, right? So they don't have to go over there and spend their money or spend more in the Bay Area because everything's more expensive over there, and just get to experience that here and just stay local, right? And support other local businesses by staying local, right? Because I think it's a domino effect essentially. So
it's all about banding together in community, help people out.
I got one more thing for you. Can you tell me a little bit more about what your future business plans are? I know you said it's your dream to one day open a Korean restaurant here in town as well. But in terms of Konfucious Eats, what are some of your plans?
Well, I feel like we're growing every year. This year's a particularly tough on everybody right now. Right now, it's really slow for most restaurants. The economy is really tough. It's hot. Not people aren't eating out as much as they were last year. That's going to be the difficult thing this year. So we're just trying to get through that right now and get back to our busy season. September through March is typically where we get very busy, probably double than what we do in the summer. So we're just focusing on that. My plan is to hopefully open on Mondays. I've been talking about that for a long time. Every time I've tried to open on Mondays, either someone quits or I have a staffing issue. But it's mostly going to be me cooking on Mondays. I have my cooks here, but I might take over Mondays. So I might turn this into like a special industry sushi night, because we actually did a sushi event last few weeks ago and we killed it, destroyed. And I was like, maybe I should start doing sushi more often. But last year I started doing fine dining sushi called omakase. Omakase is in the chef's hands is the translation. So it's a sushi dinner, 15 courses. I would charge $150. That's coming back this summer as well, but it's more of an intimate, 15 people, just me. You know, my staff is certain, but I'm the one. I'm actually in front of everybody cooking. I'm bringing those back. I might do another sushi night, maybe once a month, because that was really, really, really successful. I'm all about doing events, so I try to do an event once a month. I'm planning our buddy with Food Fix. We're talking about doing a collab. With I have a friend that's opening a food truck, and she's working on it for the food truck, but I was going to have her do a pop-up with her here to kind of give her some publicity and I love doing collabs. I love doing fusions. My buddy Big Vic in Turlock makes amazing barbecue, some of the best barbecue I've ever had. This beef rib is amazing. We occasionally once a year do a brisket ramen that just is the best thing. So that's our plan for the next few months. I plan on opening on Mondays. We did a video game tournament last year. Plan on doing that again. I would love to open in a bigger spot because I think exceeded our space. We have a 40 seat capacity and the kitchen is kind of small. So at this point, I'm like, we need something maybe double. So maybe in a few years, once my lease is up, maybe I'll be thinking about looking for a bigger spot. I would love for more than one location, but since I am the only owner and I do almost everything, it's very tough to think about doing multiple locations. As long as I can get my staff kind of automated with everything without me, I can probably branch off and do other stuff. But it's still too early to say. I mean, the Korean restaurant would be amazing. My long-term goal, though, is to hopefully my end long goal is hopefully to keep this place open. But while I still do, I would love to be able to go to Japan and open a restaurant there. So instead of opening a restaurant, like multiple restaurants in California, I would rather keep one here. And then I would love, that's like my dream, is to open one in Japan. Because if I can make ramen in Japan and sell, I think that's like the success. It's key to victory, because you're making ramen in its homeland. You know, California is getting much bigger for ramen. It's much better. LA, San Francisco have some amazing spots. So like a lot of the Japanese companies go to LA, and if I can just kind of get my foot in that market and be successful in any way, and people enjoy the food, I mean that does say something. We get a lot of compliments from Japanese people that love the ramen. We had this wonderful older lady that was eating our food, and she started crying because it made her feel like she was back at home with her grandma as a kid. And I was just like, yeah, that helps me. That blows my mind. You know, we just got a message the other day about how they've had ramen for years in LA, and this is the best they've ever had. So it makes it so much worth it when hearing those comments. You know, the hard work it takes to make that bowl. You know, the 2 days it takes to make a whole batch of ramen. It makes it worth it. You know. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's really awesome to hear it from people who grew up eating that, and to know that they feel like it reminds them of home is such a powerful thing, right? And food does that, right? Just like other things in life do, but like it's powerful when you can eat something and then it reminds you of like what your parents made growing up. Like it's a big thing.
Sure. Nostalgia helps me a lot. If you think about it, I have nostalgia everywhere here. My food is nostalgic, so. But I want you to feel good with my food. I want people to feel good. I want them happy. You know, how I feel when I eat something amazing is how I want people to feel. I want people to cry when they eat something amazing. Very effective, by the way. So I think I've done a pretty good job with that over the years. So
Yeah. No, yeah, that's really awesome. As I think any restaurant should that's out there, right? If you're not trying to make people feel good, then
mhm.
there's something wrong there, right? For a restaurant. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that you're out there because there's certainly some restaurants I'm sure, and I've been to a few that's not really the case, right? They just want to make the food and just get people out of there quick.
yeah. I don't want to. Just a machine at that point. McDonald's,
Oh yeah, there you go. Perfect example there. Um,
right?
cool. Well, where can people follow the business and then your like food blog and then when you open the YouTube channel and all that?
Everything will be under Confucious Eats. Instagram is Confucious Eats, KONFUCIOUSEATS. Facebook, I think it's Confucius_Eats. Um, Instagram is most of where I post, but I try to post. Um, I try to post on everything. We try to do TikToks. We don't really have a niche in TikTok, so I think YouTube might be better for us. Definitely can check us out on ConfuciusEats.com. You can look at all our information on there as well. We have our catering flyers. We have on our website. We do catering. If you ever need any catering done, I will show up personally and make ramen for you at a birthday party if you need to. Or if you just want us to make a bunch of food for you to deliver, we will do that too. We do a bunch of stuff for Gallo. We just made 30 rice bowls for them a few weeks ago. We delivered them. We had a doctor's office call us for a big order. So if you ever need any big orders, I'm always down to give a discount for bulk orders. And then if it's a certain amount, I'm always more than happy to deliver as well.
Wow, that's awesome, mate. Well, everyone heard it now. What better than to have your food at a party, your next event, and do that. So I'm glad you guys offer that as well. But thank you so much, Ernie, for being here on the podcast. This has been really awesome, really inspirational to hear your story of starting the business, the future business plans, and all that. It's such a cool story, and wish you the best. And I hope that you're able to open that Korean restaurant here because it would be
Thank
great
you.
to try authentic Korean food.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what authentic is because obviously I've never had authentic.
Go to Oz and in Sacramento. It's a good place.
Oh,
All you
okay.
can
Hey,
eat. All
I'm
you can
going
eat.
over
It's
there.
like 30. Yeah, that's pretty good. They're my go-to spot.
Okay, I'll have to check them out. Yeah, I'm going over there all the time, so it'd be nice to go and experience that, and then go to your restaurant when it opens as well, and actually get to
Yeah.
stay
Thank you.
local. Um,
Right. I'm trying.
awesome. Well, once again, thank you for being on the podcast, and thank you so much to everyone for listening, or for those of you who are watching on YouTube, on Facebook. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be posting another episode in the following week, so subscribe if you are on YouTube, or if you're listening on the podcast, then hit that subscribe button, follow button, whatever it might be in your favorite podcast app, so you find out when the next episode gets posted. But hope everyone has a good morning or good night whenever you're listening to us, and you'll hear me next week here on the 209 Journey podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.